Why are hurricanes named after people? Hurricanes are also referred to as tropical cyclones, and for as long as people have been monitoring and reporting on these storms, they have been trying to figure out how to properly identify them. Newspapers and weather forecasters in the United States gave storms names that made reference to their time period, geographic location, or intensity until well into the 20th century. For example, the Great Hurricane of 1722, the Galveston Storm of 1900, the Labor Day Hurricane of 1935, and the Big Blow of 1913 are all examples of storms that were given names that reference their time period, geographic location, or intensity. In the meanwhile, hurricanes that made landfall in the stormy West Indies were given names that were derived from the Catholic saint's day on which they occurred. Clement Raga, an early pioneer in the field of meteorology in Australia, began giving names to tropical cyclones in the latter half of the 19th century. At first, he named these storms after figures from Greek and Roman mythology as well as letters from the Greek alphabet. He eventually resorted to the names of local politicians whom he really detested, and as a consequence, he was able to claim in public forecasts that the authorities were creating enormous grief or wandering aimlessly around the Pacific. He was an unusual and humorous man. It goes without saying that Raga's approach, which was covertly antagonistic, did not take the meteorological profession by storm. During World War II, meteorologists serving in the United States Air Force and Navy, who were tasked with mapping storms across the Pacific, required an improved method for identifying hurricanes while reviewing weather maps. Many people started naming tropical cyclones after their spouses and girlfriends back home, in order to honor them and pay homage to them. The newly established National Weather Bureau in 1945, which would eventually become the National Weather Service, first used a system that was based on the military phonetic alphabet, but by 1953, all of the available alternatives had been used up. The next year, the Bureau of Meteorology adopted the forecaster's unofficial tradition of assigning hurricanes names of women. At the time, the United States led the globe in the development of technology for tracking weather, therefore many other nations followed its lead and adopted the new name. It was only natural that by the 1960s, some feminists would begin to question the gendered naming system that had been put in place, and rightfully so. Roxy Bolton, a woman who lived in the Miami area and was a member of the National Organization for Women, was the most outspoken of the group. Bolton was critical of the naming system used by the National Weather Service for hurricanes in the early 1970s. He stated, "Women are not catastrophes, destroying lives and communities and leaving a permanent and destructive effect." She suggested senators as more acceptable namesakes for storms, saying that senators enjoy having things named after them. Perhaps she was taking a cue from Clement Raga when she made her recommendation. Both the National Weather Service and the World Meteorological Association made the change to an alternating inventory of men's and women's names in 1979. This was a long overdue change. However, Bolton's senator-based plan was shot down, and so was her idea to replace the term hurricane with himicane, which she said sounded too close to hurricane. In recent years, the lists of names, which are predefined and cycle every 6 years, have been increasingly broadened to represent the different places where tropical cyclones strike, in order to better reflect the diversity of the areas that are affected. Names of very destructive hurricanes that caused a significant number of deaths and had a significant impact on the economy, such as Katrina in 2005 and Andrew in 1992, have been permanently retired.